Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app, and back with video streaming as well. You want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves? Call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Local reaction to the attempted assassination of the president goes completely off the rails, especially from Jay Inslee. But before we get to any of that, time for today's daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
The left is the party of violence. Want me to prove it? How much security do you see Republicans traveling with? Be it politicians, be it speakers. I have to get security anytime I go anywhere, as does everybody else I know who is a conservative commentator, who's a host, who's anything else. Because unfortunately, we know that we are always targets for the left. I've seen it with my own eyes too many times. To try and both sides this, to try and equate this, just ain't factually accurate. The left is always calling for attacks on the right. The left is always calling for violence on people they disagree with. Time and time and time again. This is not new. This is something we have seen many, many times. And from everything I have seen, from the documents regarding the charges, to what happened on Saturday night, to the video I have seen, shows that this failed assassin, and thank God he failed, is a product of a system, is a product of a belief system where he was truly brainwashed into thinking all this. That's not an excuse. That's just a reality. That is just a reality of what we know about this guy so far. So here is the detail of what happened. We know that this guy was staying in the hotel itself. That's the number one question that a lot of people have. How did he get so close to the president? And probably Secret Service policy is going to change after this. How did he get so close to the president? Well, he was staying in the hotel, and they weren't checking guests who were coming and going from the hotel. The security was based around the ballroom, not entry to the hotel, which, by the way, from the beginning is flawed. That means somebody, God forbid, with a bomb could have walked in the front doors of the hotel and blown the sucker up, and they wouldn't have actually been near the ballroom. The video shows this suspect running past security, down a hall, carrying a shotgun, 2 pistols, and knives before law enforcement opened fire on this guy. Originally, it was reported that he was shot. He was not. He was taken to the ground. One federal agent was shot, took a shot to the chest. Thank God is going to be completely okay. And then the question was, why did this person do it? Well, they left behind a manifesto talking about why they did it. They left behind an entire manifesto. Shall we go through pieces of it? I'm not going to read this entire crazy on air. But when you read it, it is everything the left says about President Trump. This is the same stuff time and time again. This is what he wrote. I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. This is such a blatant lie triggered by the Epstein mind virus, where there is no proof whatsoever that President Trump had anything to do with him. So bad, in fact, that Joe Scarborough, definitely not a member of the right-wing media conspiracy, was even discounting this insanity this morning on his show.
One of the great mysteries to me and a lot of other people is we've had reporting for some time. Donald Trump is not on Epstein's list. There's nothing in there that's really damning about Donald Trump. And as Susie Wild says, not damning about Donald Trump.
According to the chief.
Or Bill Clinton. So one of the great mysteries all along in this, not been like, what's Donald Trump hiding? What did he do? It's like, why, if he's not in these files, which all the reporting says he's not, Why is he so obsessed on blocking access to the files? Is he trying to protect somebody? Joe, you got to the actual heart of the question.
So hang on a second here. I just want to go back to the beginning of that. So he's saying he's not implicated. There's nothing that implicates him. There's nothing really bad about him in the files. And yet we keep having the left say that he's in the files and that he's a rapist and he's a pedophile and he did this and he did that. Stop trying to tell me that you guys have been saying this the whole time. It just ain't true. In fact, even ABC News, once they saw the manifesto, is calling out that Trump had nothing to do with any of this.
This morning, a new document coming to light claims in the mid-2000s, President Trump called police about Jeffrey Epstein. Among the 3 million Epstein files released by the Department of Justice last month is a 4-page FBI report on an interview the Bureau conducted in 2019 with the man believed to be former Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder. Ryder and his detectives began investigating Epstein for human trafficking in 2004. According to the document, Trump called Ryder around that time and said, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this." Ryder also says Trump said he threw Epstein out of his club, and he was around Epstein once when teenagers were present, and Trump got the hell out of there. The former police chief says Trump told him to focus on Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, saying she is evil.
Did you have any suspicions that he was molesting young women,
No, I had
underage
no
women?
idea. I had no idea.
Trump has long denied having any knowledge of Epstein's crimes, but Ryder says Trump was one of the very first people to call when people found out that they were investigating Epstein.
So now you have ABC News admitting that it was President Trump who called the authorities on Epstein. If you're going to be implicated, you don't normally call the authorities to tell them what's going on. And yet the Democrats have spent years. In fact, now what are we talking about? 4 years of Trump and the 2 years he was running before that, that's 6. 4 years of Biden, that's another 4. So you've been spending over a decade demonizing President Trump.
You need a montage. Even Rocky had a montage.
Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
This is what kicking the out of fascism looks like.
Try to prevent the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos that's been unleashed against us.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racist nationalism.
We are now living in a fascist dictatorship.
We are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. We're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
Not only to roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator.
When fascism isn't just coming, it's already here.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, "No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core."
If you keep saying that stuff, somebody with a broken brain is actually going to believe it. The left keeps saying, let's tamp down the rhetoric. Well, they didn't after Charlie Kirk. They didn't after Steve Scalise. They didn't after Kavanaugh. They didn't after assassination attempt number 1, number 2, and they haven't after number 3, which is why most Americans across the political spectrum believe that political violence is never justified. However, according to most recent polls from YouGov and many, many others, younger, more liberal Americans are more likely to believe it is justified or required in huge amounts. This is a guy who just got his master's, was a young teacher. This was a guy who did a lot of video gaming programming, computer programming before this. This was a young guy who was made this way by this insanity that is constantly pumped out by teachers, constantly pumped out by Democrats, nonstop. Nonstop. Now, one of my first thoughts about this was, now can we stop with the discussion about what a waste of money the ballroom is at the White House? The White House is a fortress. I know because I've gone there beforehand. And getting into that place, it is a fortress. In fact, I was across the street, which is still in the same compound at the ONB, which is the building that the vice president uses. It's got a lot of offices next to it. It's a very, very tall building next to it. And looking out the window of the room I was in when I was doing all my interviews at the White House, I looked down at the White House. And what I saw on the roof, guys with guns, sharpshooters everywhere. I could spot their positions from where I was. I could see the guys wandering the fence. I could see everything from the campus from where I was in that building. The White House is a fortress. Unfortunately, the hotels in D.C. are not. And clearly they're not checking all the guests. So can we finally stop with the argument over the ballroom? First of all, you won't have to rent out other facilities anymore. Now you're probably going to have a Secret Service, whether they screen every guest or whether they rent out every room for every president after President Trump, including President Trump. They're going to have to screen every guest or rent out every room to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. So can we stop with the stupidity over the ballroom? In fact, even President Trump said this right after the assassination attempt when he had a press conference on Saturday night.
All of the conditions that took place tonight, and I will say, it's not a particularly secure building. And I didn't want to say this, but this is why we have to have all of the attributes of what we're planning at the White House. It's actually a larger room, and it's much more secure. It's drone-proof, it's bulletproof glass. We need the ballroom. That's why Secret Service, that's why the military are demanding it.
Let me go back to President Barack Obama. When he was in office, Jerry Seinfeld was doing his show, Getting Coffee in Cars with Comedians. One episode was with Barack Obama, and the shtick of the show is Jerry Seinfeld shows up in a car that he thinks fits the personality of whoever he's interviewing. They drive around to get coffee. Well, it's the President of the United States, and whatever car Jerry Seinfeld's going to show up in is not bulletproof. So what they do instead, he just drove around the White House. Just drove around inside that driveway right there. Just drove around in circles because basically the president is a prisoner inside the house unless he has to go somewhere for an official meeting or an official trip or anything else. He's inside the White House because it is one of the most secure places in this country. I would say it's the safest house in the United States of America, but you have to contrast that with the fact that it's also probably one of the biggest targets. So we know that it's a secure facility. We know that that's where the president has to be. And we know that anytime he goes off site, it is less secure. Here's something else. All the Democrats saying, thank you to our law enforcement. Thank you to our Secret Service. Thank you, thank you, thank you. How come you're not funding them? How come you're not funding them? It's been close to 2 months where you haven't funded these guys and you were benefiting from their protection. Can we stop with this stupidity because you're trying to virtue signal over ICE? You don't know how many lives were at risk in that room. It wasn't just president. It wasn't just the vice president. It wasn't just the cabinet. It wasn't just Republican members of Congress. It wasn't just the media. Democrats were there as well. Over 1,000 people were in that room. It could have been an absolute bloodbath if that guy had gotten past the front door. Do you know what he had on him?
An individual charged a U.S. Secret Service checkpoint here in the lobby area of the hotel. He was armed with a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives. As he ran through that checkpoint, members of law enforcement from the United States Secret Service intercepted that individual. This is a very preliminary investigation at this point. We do know that law enforcement exchanged gunfire with the individual. We do know that a U.S. Secret Service uniformed division officer was struck in his vest. He was transported to a local hospital for treatment. He seems to be in good spirits at this time. The suspect in this case, he was not struck by gunfire. However, he was transported to a local hospital to be evaluated. Again, we're very early in the investigation. We have members of the United States Secret Service, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the FBI here to continue to investigate this matter. But at this point, it does appear he is a lone actor, a lone gunman. There does not appear to be any sort of danger to the public at this time.
That was the report we got Saturday night. And it's accurate because that's what the charging document said today as well. This could have been so much worse. And this was supposed to be a night of unity. This was supposed to be a night dedicated to free speech, but yet the left doesn't want you saying anything they disagree with. Here's what the president said about this event.
This was an event dedicated to freedom of speech that was supposed to bring together members of both parties with members of the press. And in a certain way it did, because the fact that they just unified, I saw a room that was just totally unified. It was in one way very beautiful, a very beautiful thing to see.
Now, even the president after this admitted that the speech he was going to give was going to be bashing the media and bashing the press, et cetera, and he said it would have been completely inappropriate to give that speech, so they're going to do the event again, and he's going to give a different speech. Conciliatory. I like that. Or at least he's admitting that he hasn't always been so nice to the press in the past. But why is it that when you go to a Republican event, there is security up the wazoo, and when you go to a Democrat event, there usually isn't? Why is it that when Democrats go to speak places, they don't have to bring a phalanx of security guards with them, but anytime a conservative goes somewhere to speak, they do? It's because the violence is coming from one side. In the summer of 2020, what did we see nonstop in our area here in Seattle? And this wasn't something that just ended in 2020. We saw it as recently as a week ago in the heart of downtown Seattle, where a bunch of people are attending a fundraiser for a Jewish event, and 75 Antifa, communist, pro-Hamas lunatics show up and assaulted people. And I found out over the weekend they were attacking cars as well. I've done a public disclosure request for all the body camera footage. But why is it? And in fact, you want to know something else? Antifa locally is even calling out Democrats who said the right thing for how dare they say the right thing. Seattle-based anti-fascist blog Through the Static that promoted the violent protest last week is mad at Democrat Representative Marie Gluesenkamp Perez. Why? Because she condemned the attempted assassination of the president. Representative Marie Gluesenkamp Perez wrote, "Please stop trying to murder the president." And they got mad. They got mad about this, saying she didn't have all the facts. She didn't know. Somebody shoots a gun near the president. It's a pretty safe bet they're trying to kill the president. And they got mad about this because they want the chaos. They want the violence. And this is right here in our own backyard. We know it is coast to coast. We know that we have let these insurgents, we have let these insurrectionists run rampant with no penalties whatsoever. They released the guys from last week who assaulted people and haven't charged them yet. I haven't seen a single condemnation from any Democrat locally because they know that is their base. You look around here in Washington, why do we just expect the left to be violent? Because when your enemies say something, believe them. When your enemies tell you their plans, believe them. When your enemies tell you who they are, believe them. What's the left going to say? Oh, January 6th, spare me. For all we know, that was paid for by the Southern Poverty Law Center at this point. Enough. The left was literally paying hate groups like the Ku Klux Klan to be violent, to commit their violent acts. The fact that this assassination attempt comes on the heels of this should surprise nobody. What, the Southern Poverty Law Center didn't have a big enough fundraiser, so they needed to pay people to go out and create more hate? Well done. Really well done. This is what our country is. I can relate it to my own life for a second. Forget where I go for speeches. You know the amount of people who ask me on a regular basis, Ari, are you safe? Are you safe when you give speeches? Are you safe when you go out? We had to hire security when we went to Starbucks last week. When we took a U-Haul to Starbucks last week, we had to hire security because we knew if the lunatics knew where I was and I was going to be there for 3 hours, I'm a stationary target, and that's where they were going to be because the left is violent. And one of the other things about the left being violent is there are far, far, far too few on the left who will call this out because they're worried about their own radical base. They are worried that their own radical base will turn on them because they have so many times in the past. Adam Smith, who's running for Congress here in Washington, here in Seattle, is petrified of the lunatics on the left, which is why he's trying to sound more and more like Shama Sawant, the communist, the Marxist, every single day. You want to attack somebody's tax policy? Fine. You want to attack their health care policy? Fine. I don't remember a single Republican, not one, calling for the death of Joe Biden. How many Democrats have you heard call for the death of Donald Trump? The overthrowing, the fight him. Pramila Jayapal literally has the resistance lab to be street ready to oppose Republicans. They're literally using money funding this stuff. The Southern Poverty Law Center funding the Ku Klux Klan and other hate groups like in Charlottesville. This is what the left is now. And this is why they continue losing so many people. Not necessarily to become Republicans, but because they realize the left has lost the plot. They have lost their minds. The Babylon Bee put it best today, the parody news site. They said Trump to negotiate ceasefire with Democrats. I wish that was more of a joke. Unfortunately, it hits too close to home. Do you think that the Democrat Party can even be saved? Because I don't think it can at this point. I think when you have people like the Squad, Rashida Tlaib, who supports terrorists, Ilhan Omar, who supports terrorists, AOC, who supports terrorists, they're supporting terrorist organizations against the United States of America. That is how violent they are. I usually try to give benefit of the doubt to the other side. And I usually try to say not all Democrats are like this. And I know we have a lot of listeners to the show that don't identify as Democrats. But if you don't call this out and you don't commit yourself to be better about this kind of stuff, you are enabling it. You are encouraging it. And is this really the party you want to be associated with? Because I know a lot of you right now are going, nah, this doesn't represent me. This doesn't represent me. I don't think the Democrat Party can be saved. Do you? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, local reaction to the assassination attempt. Jay Inslee said one of the dumbest things I've ever heard him say, and that's a high bar, low bar to clear. Give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. So, former Washington Governor Jay Inslee had two of the most tone-deaf tweets I have ever heard. So, after the attempted assassination on President Trump, here's what Inslee says. We cannot forget that while Trump praises law enforcement for protecting him, he totally disrespected law enforcement officers who protected democracy against his coup attempt on January 6th. Never forget. Okay, number one. Jay, Bubby, how many first responders, including police officers and National Guardsmen, did you fire for not getting the COVID jab? Hundreds? Number two, did you ever condemn the violence of the Summer of Love? Did you ever do anything to support the police officers? You were on the other side. You pretended not to know about it.
Well, that's news to me, so I'll have to reserve any comment about it. I have not heard anything about that.
Not heard anything about a 6-block takeover of the biggest city in your state. Never heard anything about it, right? He also wrote, after getting slammed on social media for that, he tries again. Political violence of all stripes against any political figure is unacceptable. So is the rank hypocrisy of someone who now says he respects law enforcement after he provoked the largest political violence in D.C. and then pardoned those who attacked officers. Hey, Jay, anybody been arrested for the autonomous zone? You guys do anything about the warlord of the autonomous zone who is giving out AR-15s out of the trunk of his Tesla? Did you do anything about that whatsoever? Why don't you look in the mirror, Jay? Why don't you take a quick peek there? How about it? Then you've got Bob Ferguson, thankful for the quick actions of law enforcement, keeping everyone safe at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Couldn't mention the president. Also, Bob, how many times have you tried to prosecute police officers? How many times? How many times have you tried? And then there's people, I don't even care what their statement says, like Pramila Jayapal. Why? Because we know what she says when there hasn't been a tragedy. We know what she says on a regular day.
Hey everyone, I am here at our inaugural session of Resistance Labs. This is a new training we're launching. We had over 850 people sign up. We're trying to accommodate as many as we can, but it's really to get you strike ready and street ready. It's going to be a training that involves different tactics and strategies, and also looking at democracies around the world and how they felt, what we can do. So we're super excited. It's the first in a series, so there will be more. Make sure you stay tuned to hear what happens here tonight and to sign up for the next one, because they'll be virtual, they'll be in person. We are building our movement of resistance.
We're going to be strike ready and street ready. Really? Really? But you want to condemn what happened to the president? Spare me. Absolutely spare me your nonsense. You can post whatever you want on Twitter, but we know what you're doing. In fact, over the weekend after this happened, she was posting videos of the training going on. So even though somebody just tried to kill the president for the resistance, she's posting the videos of the training that's happening. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
What's up is first, congratulations on your 5-year anniversary as a talk show host.
Thank you.
You have become an incredible flamethrower, many times in service of defending Jews all around the world, but especially Washington State. You're more effective than the current clown that's the Seattle mayor, the current disgrace that's the governor. Frankly, to be honest with you, I just really want to call and say thank you to you for all you've done. And I also condemn any attempt to kill someone who the voters legitimately elected. I mean, yeah, I voted the other way in the last election, but, the American people should have their way. And, if they voted for somebody different than me, then that's the American way.
Yeah. There's too many people that won't say that, Joe. It shouldn't be that hard, don't you think?
Yeah, it should be as easy as apple pie and saying, God bless America. And I'll also add something else, too. I have a Jewish Democratic friend who's going to hold a campaign kickoff in Kirkland, and because she's a Jew, I already asked them to provide security for her event on June 6th in downtown Kirkland, because we all know there's a lot of progressives there that love Alex Zimmerman and they're anti-Semites. So we got to make sure there's Kirkland police down there.
Yeah, well, you know what the problem is? It's the people they want to vote for them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be Democrats, because those are the people whose votes they're trying to court. Joe, appreciate the call. Appreciate the kind words. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, my friends, is the moderate left finally turning on the rest of the party? Well, that would be nice. Too bad all it took was 3 attempted assassinations of the president. We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. I like that some of the more reasonable people on the left are finally calling this stuff out. Van Jones, I disagree with him a lot, but I actually like some of his takes when he finally calls out the insanity in his own party. Give a listen to what he said on CNN just last night.
I thought the president did well. I'm starting to worry about something, though, which is that the shooter survived, which means on Monday he's going to court, which means there is a danger that people try to make him some sort of hero. You watch what happened with Luigi, who shot a CEO to death and somehow became a hero. So they said tonight you saw the worst of America, you saw the best of America. Tonight you definitely saw the best of America. I hope on Monday we don't see the worst again. I just want to say very clearly, this kind of despicable behavior has no place in America. It has no place on the right. It has no place on the left. We don't know if he was there because he wanted to hurt Democrats or Republicans. Both were there. We don't know if he wanted to hurt journalists or politicians. Both were there. This kind of behavior has no place in America. And it's wrong. Violence is not the way to resolve any grievances. And this cheerleader culture for violence, for people who think that the answer to our problems is to go shooting billionaires or going to synagogues or all these different things has to be called out immediately. The minute it starts, every single person with a platform must denounce it, or we're going to see this again.
He's 100% right. He is 100% right. So why aren't we seeing more of it? Why aren't we seeing more people call it out? I see some Democrats called it out and then immediately went back to doing what they were doing. Do you think this is a moment where things are going to change? Do you think so? Caroline Leavitt went on maternity leave last week. We played that adorable clip where she was talking about how she's about to have a baby. Still very, very pregnant. In that room when the shooting happened. She was in that room. She was at that podium today calling out the Democrats.
It's not just the media. It is the entire Democrat Party has made their pitch to voters across the country that Donald Trump poses an existential threat to democracy, that he is a fascist, and that they compare him to Hitler. I mean, these are despicable statements that the American people have been consuming for years. And so many mentally perturbed individuals are led to believe these words are truth and then are inspired to act on it. I have a whole host of examples that we can share with you after. It is pages and pages of major Democrat Party elected officials saying, such as Rep. Hakeem Jeffries just this month said, "We are in an era of maximum warfare everywhere all the time." Governor Josh Shapiro said heads need to roll within the administration. Senator Alex Padilla said people are, quote, dying because of fear and terror caused by the Trump administration. Senator Elizabeth Warren, President Trump is making the country look like a, quote, fascist state. Senator Adam Schiff saying President Trump using a dictator playbook. Senator Ed Markey calling President Trump a dictator, saying that this administration's actions are authoritarianism on steroids. Governor J.B. Pritzker, never before in my life have I called for mass protest disruptions. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. You have Rep. Presley saying, "We'll see you in the streets." Rep. Monica McIver, a Democrat representative on Capitol Hill, "We will not take this shit from Donald Trump. He thinks he's a dictator. We are at war." These are Democrat elected officials calling for war against the President of the United States and his supporters. I could go on and on, but again, when you have people in positions of power that are saying things like this every single day for years, you are inspiring violence by people who are already mentally ill. And that's what we've seen against this president for far too long.
That is exactly what we saw. That is exactly what we saw. And then you have to think about something like this, which is, and this one right here, this is from Robin Lakewood. How about a car bomb in the hotel parking structure? God forbid, God forbid, God forbid. Just like the first World Trade Center bombing. Could have been something like that. And unfortunately, they didn't have the whole hotel secured because unfortunately, sometimes you don't change the policies until something actually happens. And that's what happened here. Remember Jay Inslee? You can't, this isn't something new. This isn't something new at all. Remember Jay Inslee comparing anybody who supported Donald Trump to bioreactor hazards, comparing them to domestic terrorists or foreign terrorists for that matter, who are trying to poison or kill everybody?
You know, I've talked to folks say, well, this is an individual right. If I want to run the risk of dying on an intubator after being sick for a month. I went to a funeral the other day of a state employee who was in hospital for a month in his early 40s. If you want to run that risk, and people were saying, hey, that's my decision, I can run the risk. The problem with that is you're making a risk for everybody around you when you don't get vaccinated. You're a risk for your spouse, you're a risk for your kids, your grandkids, your parents, your co-workers, because you are a bioreactor facility generating virus and spreading it around, including to kids who can't get vaccinated. I want to reiterate that. If you're a 50-year-old man who, voted for Donald Trump and didn't think COVID was a problem and you don't get vaccinated right now, you arrest every kid in your city because you could be spreading a virus to a 10-year-old who can't get eligible for the vaccine right now.
By the way, when he said that, 70% of Washington was vaccinated. We had reached herd immunity long before then because of the amount of people who already had COVID. And yet, any chance he could get to demonize Donald Trump, any chance he could get, that is exactly what he did. Exactly what he did. This one here from Robin Lakewood, it's not the Democrat Party, it's now the Anarchist Party. John in Lakewood says, Ari, the Democrat Party is doomed. I expect moderates to form a new party or become independents. You know why they won't? They want the fundraising. And I want the leaders of the party to be calling them out. This one here from the 253, Ari, you are correct. The left lunatics do not hold anybody accountable for their actions. For example, how many of them actually voted to condemn Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar for their racist remarks? How many? How many? John in Auburn's mad at me. He says, Ari, you shouldn't give Inslee the time of day after the chaos he left our state in, as well as leaving the state. That's right, Jay. Go back to Idaho. Go back to Idaho, Jay. Caroline Levitt also had this to say.
When you read the manifesto of this shooter, ask yourselves, how different is the rhetoric from this almost assassin than what you read on social media and hear in various forums every single day? The answer, if you're being honest with yourself, is that there is no difference at all. Much of the manifesto of the would-be assassin is indistinguishable from the words that we hear daily from so many. For example, as the First Lady of the United States pointed out this morning, just 2 days prior to the shooting, ABC's late-night host Jimmy Kimmel disgustingly called First Lady Melania Trump an expectant widow. Who in their right minds says a wife would be glowing over the potential murder of her beloved husband? And having experienced what I did with the First Lady on Saturday night, I can tell you that she was anything but that.
Caroline Levitt was sitting right next to the First Lady. She was sitting up there on the dais with the Trumps and with the vice president. You saw the look of shock on their faces as this happened. Saw it. And yet Jimmy Kimmel is calling her an expectant widow, the glow of the expectant widow. In fact, up next, my friends, the fallout from Jimmy Kimmel's disgusting remarks. And is he actually going to be booted by Disney/ABC? We'll give you all details on that when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. On Thursday night, Jimmy Kimmel did a bit on his show about what he would have said if he was hosting the White House Correspondents' Dinner because he wasn't invited. Here's the bit that he did.
Our First Lady Melania is here. Look at Melania, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow.
I think the laughing is worse than the joke. I think that's my problem with it. The laughing is worse than the joke. This is the same guy who joked about Charlie Kirk, who claimed it was a right-wing person. I mean, come on. Now, mind you, both the First Lady and the President have called for Jimmy Kimmel to be fired. I don't think that's what you do. I think you just watch his ratings drop and drop and drop. Did you not learn your lesson from last time? When all of a sudden you make a martyr out of him, you make a hero out of him, he comes back on record ratings, and then they dropped and dropped and dropped because everybody wanted to see what he was going to say that first night. Nobody was interested in anything he said afterwards. However, First Lady Melania Trump rarely wades into politics like this. So she wrote this. She said right afterwards she issued a statement and said Kimmel's hateful and violent rhetoric is intended to divide our country. His monologue about my family isn't comedy. His words are corrosive and deepens the political sickness within America. People like Kimmel shouldn't have the opportunity to enter our homes each evening to spread hate. A coward. Kimmel hides behind ABC because he knows the network will keep running cover to protect him. Enough is enough. It's time for ABC to take a stand. How many times will ABC's leadership enable Kimmel's atrocious behavior at the expense of our community? Now, mind you, I'm of the opinion don't cancel him. Just let him fade into obscurity. Anytime you mention him, you are giving him the biggest microphone there is. And clips go viral all the time. So now this clip, I've seen it a gajillion times popping up on my feed. You might have made him more popular. What do you think? Should you ignore Kimmel or should you cancel Kimmel? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take call from Rob and Everett. Rob, what's going on?
Well, that clown that was saying there's no place in America for the violence, no place on the left, no place on the right, yada, yada, yada. I don't know. I can't think of a conservative or right-winger that's been actively committing acts of violence against the left wing for the longest time. Maybe there might be one guy out there, but I don't know who it is. I've never heard of it.
Well, the only ones I know of are the ones paid for by the Southern Poverty Law Center or the ones that were sent to jail for January 6th. Those are the only ones I can name offhand. I mean, I'm sure there's probably some more out there I don't know about, but this big boogeyman of the white supremacists, I haven't seen that anywhere. Have you?
Yeah, 1,200 of them, I guess, for the Jan 6, yeah.
Yeah, but let's be real. How many of those actually did the violence, right? We want to keep going back to January 6th. Think about the grandma with cancer who thought she was like on a tour of the Capitol, right? She also got sentenced to jail. So you talk about the riot on the front of the building, which was reprehensible and disgusting and horrible and awful, and then the back doors being opened up by the Capitol Police to just let people into the building. Those people got arrested as well. But you keep coming back to this. The Democrats are funding this. Democrats are looking the other way on it. And while Democrats have security from time to time, the only ones I see whose events are being disrupted are the radical left or the pro-Israel ones. That's it. Anybody else, I don't see them being disrupted. That's it.
Hey, when you're a retired governor, do you still have armed guards protection?
Not to my knowledge, which is probably why he moved to Idaho, because I hear it's a lot safer over there, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, you read my mind.
Okay. Rob, appreciate the call. Right. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I got to say, by the way, I'm a little disappointed by some of our friends on the right in the media. So the way that normally goes down with me is because I can't drive on the Sabbath, I leave a car at the synagogue. So that way I can leave as soon as Sabbath is over and go home. And I always leave my car tuned to Fox News. So that way if something's happening, I'll know pretty much right away when I get in my car because I can't check my phone or anything else. I get in the car and I didn't hear Gutfeld. Gutfeld is always on Saturday nights. And I didn't hear Gutfeld or any of the other, shows that just run on the weekends. I heard a news thing had been happening. But I didn't know what happened because at no point did they do a rejoin, did they do a reset of any kind. One of the first things Mike and Kevin told me when I started the show, if you're doing an interview, at least halfway through the interview, if not beforehand, you got to say, we're talking with so-and-so from so-and-so, and we're talking about this. That's one of the first things they taught me in my radio career. And here's the thing about that, guys. That's if you tune in the middle of something and you don't know what's going on. I heard all these media people rambling on about who they were hiding under the tables with. How many of them were doing selfies of themselves? Somebody's trying to kill the president of the United States, and you have your camera aimed at yourself? It was some of the worst news coverage on every station. CNN, TMZ, CBS, others were reporting that the shooter had been confirmed dead, probably on the rumors in the room. How many of them were wasted? By the way, not that I fault them for that, but you have a dinner with wine and drinking and dancing, and it's going to be fun. And instead you're going, like, subscribe, and share. Check me out. I don't care who you're hiding under the table with. You can give me that afterwards. What I want in that moment is what's going on in the room. So kudos to the journalists who were telling us what was actually going on in the room, because I think it was 5 or 10 minutes until I realized the president was still alive. Nobody said anything. Here's how easy it is. Right before you ask a question, if you're just joining us, there has been another attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. We don't have all the details yet, but we do know the president is alive and unharmed. We have heard there have been other shootings. We are working to confirm the details. Now back to our guest. How hard is that? I heard more stories about these guys under tables. I was there with Tulsi Gabbard. I was there with RFK Jr. I was there with this person. I was there with that person. Did anybody really care about any of that? Might be interesting for TMZ afterwards, but give me the details of what's going on. The entire media is in the room, and so few of them were actually covering the story. They had the cameras pointed at themselves. I guess that's what you get with the selfie generation. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from George in Kenmore. George, what's up?
Hey, Ari, wouldn't that Kimmel line be a veiled threat against the president? I think the Secret Service should pay him a visit in the middle of the night.
That's what he wants, George. That's what he wants. He wants the attention. You think more people aren't going to be tuning into his monologue tonight to see how he responds to President Trump and Melania? And he'll probably do something about the First Amendment and jokes and say, and see, our president wants to censor all of us, and then we're back on the merry-go-round again. Appreciate the call, though, George. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. However, it seems like I might be out of touch with the audience today. Everybody seems to want him gone. Cancel him. He's not funny. Fire Jimmy Kimmel. His comments were atrocious. I agree. I just think let him fade out into obscurity. When we come back, a King County employee is fired for funneling your tax dollars to their relatives. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. That's right. My hairline's receded a little bit, too. You want to be part of the show today, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Don't forget the show is streaming at KVI.com, the KVI app, and back online with the video at Rumble, X, YouTube, and, of course, over on Facebook. So a lot of you want to weigh in on this Jimmy Kimmel thing. Robin Lakewood says about Jimmy Kimmel, wasn't he in blackface or something? Yes, and many, many other things, that's for sure. The 818 says, go after ABC. This one here, Jeff and Kent agrees with me. He says, Kimmel should be allowed to just fade away. This one from John in Auburn, he says, Ari, the lady taking the bottles of booze should be identified. Okay, what John's talking about, if you saw the videos from the assassination attempt, some of the reporters or politicians were grabbing the bottles of wine and going. Because, hey, if nobody's drinking them at the table, might as well take them with us, right? just walking off with them. It was nice to hear from KVI News at the top of the hour that they're going to be donating a lot of that stuff. Now, for those of you who say, why don't they donate the wine? In a lot of the homeless shelters and stuff, you got a lot of alcoholics. So I don't think that's a really good idea. Becky in Enumclaw says, I was tempted to write the station a note, not us, meaning ABC, saying that I have no interest in Kimmel and make sure not to watch their station. They probably won't care, but I can easily watch another station and will do that. Forrest Cat says, Kimmel has had his chances enough. He has crossed a red line with his sick, violent language about the First Lady. Sylvia says, in my opinion, Jimmy Kimmel should be fired. His comment was atrocious. This one here, hope you fired Jimmy Kimmel. I agree with Trump's wife. It seems like everybody just says you should get rid of him. 206, cancel him. He's not funny at all. This one here, John says, Ari, I could never be mad at you for all you do for us conservatives. Your impersonation of Jay Inslee is good enough, but don't let his voice poison our ears anymore. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's very, very good. Switching gears over here to what's back at home. Yes, we are celebrating 5 years of the Ari Hoffman Show today. I want to do a big shout out and thank you to Mike, Zach, and Kevin, everybody who's been working with me all these years to make it possible. I appreciate all of you who are messaging us with your kind wishes, wishing the happy birthday and everything else. So do appreciate that. Thank you, Becky and Enumclaw. Thank you, Transit Joe. Thank you, everybody else who's sending those along. So let's get you the news that you want. We discussed the assassination attempt. We're going to have more details later in the show about the charges that the suspect is facing, but I want to do some local stuff that may have missed your attention and gone buried because of the assassination attempt. So you remember last week, the Center Square, our friend TJ Martinell filed a public disclosure request, and he asked for all the emails regarding the millionaire's tax, how this thing gets set up, how did it get put in place. And what he found out was people like Senator Jamie Peterson, other Democrats, were directly coordinating with the Washington State Attorney General to put this thing into place. How can you circumvent the law? How can you get around the law? How can we get around the Constitution? These are all the people who swore an oath that they were going to uphold our state's Constitution. Well, today during a press conference, I want to thank the Linwood Times for getting this video for us. Today, here's what Nick Brown said in response to all of that.
It's very common for AG's offices to advise their clients on the law, the status of cases, analyzing prior Supreme Court decisions. It is something that we do on a regular basis. It is something that all of my predecessors have done. So yes, I think it's pretty common and appropriate.
Yeah, but normally they say, this is a problem, don't do it. I looked through a lot of those documents. Truth be told, I didn't look through all of them, but I looked through a lot of those documents, and you seem to be working with them on this. Not, hey guys, I represent the people of Washington State, which is your job. I'm supposed to be here to look out for their benefit. And instead, you're saying, yeah, let's put a tax on all of them. In fact, here's how you circumvent the law. Here's how you get around the constitutional issues. That's what he was actually doing. So, you get those emails, or at least I get these emails all the time from his office, or Bob Ferguson when he was in charge. It was always something like, we won this $300 million settlement for the people of Washington. Have you ever seen any money from any of those for the people of Washington? When they talk about these settlements, it always comes back. Well, now you're about to take all of our income, all of it. You're going to take all of it. You're going to try and take as much of it as you possibly can with an income tax. You don't think it's your job to maybe try and say, you know what, this is a really, really bad idea? I didn't see that in any of the documentation at all. So instead, you're just like, oh, it's common for us to talk to them. You're not cautioning them not to do it. You are party to it, which is even worse. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Gerald in Federal Way. Gerald, what's up, man?
Yeah, well, one thing and a question. A few times I'm up late and the TV's still on. There's the Late Late Show with Seth Meyers.
Yeah.
You know, he's supposed to be a nice guy and a family man and everything like that, but sometimes his whole monologue is supposedly humorously bashing President Trump. You know, just another piling on, disparaging our president who should be respected. And it's just getting to be too much.
So I'll tell you where I stand on this. Seth Meyers, I think, has the lowest ratings out of all of them. I don't want to speak out of turn. Jimmy Fallon, I always kind of like because he does more vaudeville humor, more goofy stuff.
He talent.
He's more of a clown. None of them are getting good ratings these days because it's not the only thing on TV. You got other options. And I think that Seth Meyers, Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, when they said we want to be political pundits, they kind of forgot what it was like. Go back to Saturday Night Live in the 1990s. They were mean to Clinton. They were mean to Bush. They were mean to Perot. They were mean to everybody. But because you knew they were going to make fun of everybody, it didn't matter. So I didn't see it as being disrespectful. I saw it as parody. I saw it as fun. I remember a clip popped up the other day. It's Chris Farley playing Stormin' Norman Schwarzkopf, the general in Desert Storm. Okay, it popped up the other day, and I talk about this clip all the time, and it finally popped up where he's like, you saw what these guns could do in the Gulf. Now I'm going to show you what they could do in a ring. I want Holyfield. And I'm like, ridiculous nonsense. Or Bill Clinton going to McDonald's and stealing everybody's food as he's campaigning with everybody. Or the Monica Lewinsky Bill Clinton stuff. Or the George Bush stuff just being out of touch. Or the Dan Quayle being stupid. When you're going after everybody, it's fine. But when you single out one, you forget how to be funny. You take it personally, and you just keep going and going and going. And these guys stopped being funny a long time ago. Do you watch any of those shows anymore, Gerald?
Not really. The wife has them on like that, and I just see it occasionally, and then I don't watch them, of course.
Exactly. I think the last time I watched one of those guys regularly was Johnny Carson, but back then, everybody watched Johnny Carson. Nobody even really watches that stuff anymore, and I was, shall we just say, much, much younger. Unlike that intro today that called me much, much older. Gerald, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the
can
show.
I do one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead. What's up?
One more thing. Oh, I know the TSA got funded through the back door, but what about the poor Coast Guard? The military can't speak up for themselves, so they're going to have to sell the drugs they interdicted to get the money to pay their salaries, and maybe go rogue and pirate some ships on the high seas to raise the money. You know, it'd be more effective than a bake sale.
I say, how about we just sell the sanctioned oil? How about we do that? It's less of a moral question for me than selling the drugs, but you're not wrong. Coast Guard, Secret Service, DHS, all these different agencies not being funded while all these guys are writing tweets about how much they love our military and law enforcement. Spare me. Spare me. Appreciate the call, though, Gerald. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This one here from the 206, deport Kimmel. He is Canadian. Is he? Is Jimmy Kimmel Canadian? I don't think he is. He's a Mets fan. I'm pretty sure he is not Canadian, that one over there. This one here, happy 5th birthday on KVIRE. Keep up the good work. Appreciate that. Happy show start day, Jedi Master Hoffman from Jeff in Kent. Thank you very much. Robert from Kent says, happy 5-year anniversary. Kimmel should lose his job because of low ratings. Exactly. Anytime you pump him up, more people are going to watch the show. And that's why that clip is going viral. Nobody's happier about this than Jimmy Kimmel. What, you think he's going to apologize tonight? Unlikely.
Born in Brooklyn, New York, kids.
That's what I thought. He's not Canadian.
Unless that's some sort of a joke that we missed.
No. Dude's a Mets fan. I know that, unfortunately. Dude's a Mets fan. I know. This one here, I can't understand how some people can like Jimmy Kimmel. He's been terrible for years. I used to really like The Man Show. I used to really like Jimmy Kimmel when he had his own show. I remember when the Kansas City Royals beat the Mets in the World Series and he lost a bet to them, so he had to go to bounce house while they shot paintballs at him. I thought that was pretty funny. Unfortunately, when these guys decide to become political pundits, that's when they lose the plot. But here's an example. Why is Greg Gutfeld so popular? Greg Gutfeld is popular because he says, okay, if we're going to be political pundits, let's at least be funny about it. Why do clips go viral from Saturday Night Live these days? Usually because it's something funny, not because it's something bad. It's just so rare that these things happen anymore. Well, meanwhile, there might be a little bit of accountability here in Washington. According to the Seattle Times, They found out that a King County program manager who was running a racial equity initiative, which was funded by you and me, sent more than $800,000, close to $1 million in grant money to her own family members. Her own family members. Her name is Yolanda McGee, who was fired in January. Officials first received a complaint about what she was doing 6 years ago and did absolutely nothing. She managed the Liberation and Healing from Systemic Racism, known as a Liberated Village, which is a $10 million initiative from the Department of Community and Human Services. Wait, didn't we have other issues from them that came up in the fraud investigations? Through 19 contracts issued between 2022 and 2025, she sent money to companies owned by her daughter, brothers, cousins, and sister-in-laws, according to an investigation that was done in December of 2025. The only way the Seattle Times found out about this was through a public disclosure request, which I'm actually impressed that the Seattle Times even did that. County officials first figured out this was going on in 2020, and then rather than dealing with it, let it run for the next 5 years. 5 years. A former contractor employee emailed multiple county workers accusing McGee of a glaring conflict of interest by sending this money to her own daughter. Nobody did anything about it. 3 years later, DCHS finally figured out something was going on and sent it to the county ethics program. They concluded it wasn't a conflict of interest because she said she had no influence over her daughter being hired. But then they found out she sent it to her brothers and her brother-in-law and her sister-in-law and anybody else who is related to her. And then they canceled the payments when they found out about them. But they didn't fire her. They left her in place. King County Councilmember Rod Dombrowski told the Times if and when managers learned of this, the employee should have been removed from this work. And yet they didn't. Not at all. Hey, Rob, I got a question for you, Rod. How come you guys weren't looking into this stuff? You guys are responsible for the financial management of this state. At least Reagan Dunn was calling out the King County Regional Homeless Authority for being terrible years ago. None of the rest of you were. You guys were all pushing along and pushing along and pushing along. 3 contractors also told the county investigator that McGee pressured them to hire or subcontract with her daughter's company. They also claim she pushed to get rid of 2 Latino consultants from the program because it was meant to uplift black and brown scholars. She said they look too white in your combating racism program that you have here. She told investigators that she was adamantly denied pressuring or suggesting anyone hire her daughter and declined to answer detailed questions from the Seattle Times. So how come you guys didn't figure out that almost $1 million went missing? How come? Now, before all of you think, well, at least some accountability is coming, this is something that I have issues with. When's the last time you were at the Skyway bowling alley? Anybody out here? I think the last time I was there was maybe 20 years ago. Maybe 20 years ago at the Skyway bowling alley. And let me just say, that was my first time at the Skyway bowling alley, and it looked like it had seen better days. It really did. Well, now, after more than a decade of community advocacy, King County is moving forward with plans to build Skyway's first community center next to Skyway Park, utilizing the property of a former bowling alley. Why are we paying for this? Why aren't private donors paying for this? Look, community centers are important. I like community centers. You guys are up to your eyeballs in fraud investigations, and now you're buying a bowling alley and building a community center on it. Who's getting the contracts? What's the oversight for those contracts? Who's actually being awarded these things? Are they somebody's brother, brother-in-law, sister, sister-in-law, daughter? Do we even know this kind of stuff? I think that every public works project that King County has touched, even smelled at, sneezed at, been anywhere near, even looked at, I think should be put on hold until you can assure that the money's going to the right place. Now we're buying bowling alleys. Is there going to be a bowling alley inside the new Skyway Community Center? Look, people from Skyway, set me right on this one if you think I'm wrong. But I don't think we should be spending any King County money whatsoever until we know where the King County money is actually going. We don't know right now, and we're about to be down a lot more taxpayer money and probably can't afford things like a community center without serious cuts to the budget because you're about to lose a lot of employees. More and more people are moving. More and more of them are getting out of here. Talk about Starbucks, for example, right? This was crazy. This was absolutely nuts. So the other day we go out there and we're broadcasting from in front of Starbucks. We're broadcasting out there. We bring the U-Haul truck to call out the fact that they're leaving, but claim that they're still saying. You know what we found out while we were there? They were laying off employees while we were there. But no, we're staying. And I love how politicians, no, they're not moving. They're not moving. Give me a break. Of course they are moving. We all know they are moving. Here's one Starbucks employee who was out there in the parking lot right behind us. Right behind us. And here's what he said.
All right, team. Today is April 21st, coming up on, I think 2 o'clock. Yeah, coming up on 2 o'clock. So as of 6 a.m., I was laid off from Starbucks after 31 years. It's been a heck of a journey. Sorry, let me work on my tripod here so I don't have to hold it. But yeah, it's been quite the amazing journey at the Starbucks. Kind of started up there back in 1996. I went to this Japanese breakfast meeting, and we had a guest speaker. Howard Bihar was there, and he really didn't have much to speak about. He just kind of said, he held this letter up by a Japanese businessman saying, hey, this guy wants to open up Starbucks.
Okay, that's an employee who's been there for over 30 years, and he was given the boot while we were there, literally while we were there. So Jake Chapman, who's over at Cairo 7, he went to talk to Katie Wilson because we reached out to Katie Wilson. She didn't get back to us. She got back to our friends over at Northwest News Radio saying, Starbucks isn't leaving. Starbucks isn't leaving. Well, here's what happened when Cairo 7 asked her that question.
But this is a chance for us to ask you just your thoughts about it. And is there any concern about other businesses leaving?
This is a big Starbucks in Seattle. This is, again, not the subject of our press conference.
Yet when she finally answered.
So Starbucks expansion to Nashville has been in the works for years. Seattle will remain their North American HQ, and we're confident of that.
Thank you, everybody.
How can you say that with a straight face? We were out there for 3 hours, and those shuttle vans kept going by for Starbucks employees. Had nobody in them except for the driver, had 2 people in them. One of them had 3, including the driver. Right, Kevin?
You know why she can say that with a straight face? Because how long this is going to take for this to finally go where it's going, she'll probably be way out of office. Or, it just doesn't matter. She can say that because it's going to take a while. Well, they're always going to be able to point and go like, no, it's still down there.
Right, the mermaid's still there. Like right now, I could say the PI, it's still right there. I see the globe. The PI is still, don't they have a blog? The PI has a blog,
yeah,
right?
I went after you said that the other day because I like to check up on you because oftentimes you get a little
worked up.
Yeah, a little worked up and bombastic.
Yes,
yeah,
there you go. Yes.
There is some sort of PI, but I was looking at the whatever the news of the day was. I was like, there's no Starbucks on here today. What are they reporting on?
Well, Joel Connolly was the one who was running it, and he was working for The Stranger before he died. So who's actually updating that website anymore? That's what Joel Connolly was doing. So, yeah, it will take some time, but if they're already laying off employees, do you think they're just waiting until the end of the lease? Do they own that building? If they own the building, they're never fully going to leave unless they sell the building. I'm kind of curious. I got to do some digging into if they actually own that building or not, or somebody else owns that building. That's going to be a simple check of property records. Pretty easy to check that one out tonight. Up next, my friends, the poisonous apples from the fruit trees of education. Wasn't just one teacher with violent trends. We've got a whole list of them, including some right here in Washington. We'll give you all details when we come back. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I think the better question is who's educating your children? Now, before a lot of you get mad at me who are teachers, my wife used to be a teacher as well. I used to volunteer in a lot of schools and be a youth director. I am not calling out all teachers. But it seems like we are having an ongoing problem with teachers who are pushing their own agenda on people. Look, I get to push my agenda. That's what I get paid for. Teachers are there to educate, not push Antifa lessons. They are there to educate, not push their own radical ideology and take kids out to protests. Cole Allen, the suspect under arrest who was charged today for allegedly attempting to kill President Trump and his cabinet, is just the latest example of teachers who commit or preach violence. We have a real problem with radical teachers in America. But when you say that, how dare you impugn teachers? Hey, guys, we call out bad officers all the time. We call out bad police officers when they do something. We call out bad members of the military when they do something. Literally had a guy just the other day. We were talking about bet with Poly Market on whether or not the U.S. was going to be able to capture Maduro. Call that out on the show. But you mention a teacher, all of a sudden the teachers' unions go into full lockdown mode. This guy, Cole Allen, in Torrance, California, was the teacher of the month. He's not the only one, by the way. Libs of TikTok got this one. There's a guy named Patrick Meyer, who's from the Kukuna High School in Wisconsin. He's apparently been put on leave after writing this. I am not impressed with recent presidential assassins. It's blanking embarrassing. Then he decides to list like Booth and Oswald and others must be spinning in their graves. Make America great assassins again. Sad. There's a guy named Patrick Meyer, who's a teacher in Wisconsin. Apparently, he was suspended today after those remarks. Joanne St. Germain, you might remember her, high school English teacher in Maine in 2025, posted threats on Facebook calling for violence against Trump and supporters and said they needed to die. She ended up being investigated by police and the U.S. Secret Service. Annie Dunleavy, special education teacher in Connecticut in 2024, went viral for a video endorsing violence towards Trump supporters. Police reviewed the situation. She resigned after the backlash. Fred Wilson, high school teacher in New Jersey in 2025, posted on social media suggesting assassination of President Trump. He was investigated by the U.S. Secret Service, subject to a school district review. He later resigned. Ian Golash, Seattle high school teacher and department chair with a criminal history, took students to a BLM riot in 2020. Following the October 7th attacks, he hung posters of terrorists in his classrooms, then denied the October 7th violence. He was later fired but appealed the termination through his union. Daniel Ashpez, who is a high school teacher in Arizona, was arrested and charged in 2024 after threatening Donald Trump Jr. and Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. Patrick Meyer, who allegedly teaches, we did Patrick Meyer already. Who else we got here? Andrea Hovis claims to be a teacher and allegedly said she would pray for better aim following the attempted assassination of President Trump. Another teacher at Monroe Preparatory Academy in Ohio said, I wake up hoping he has died. I go to bed each night hoping by the time I get up in the morning he has died. For the love of God, just blanking die. What a good lesson you set for your students. Lauren Smith, a, quote, exceptional child instructor at Woodford County High School in Kentucky, threatened to assassinate President Trump. She was later placed on leave and suspended without pay. Providence, Rhode Island middle school teacher Colleen Booth wished death upon the president, writing, can we bring Lee Harvey Oswald back to life for one more mission? Hayden Dollery, a male substitute teacher at Loudoun County Public School, reportedly pretends to be a woman and was charged with making threats of bodily injury to others. This is all according to Libs of TikTok. They just got this massive list right here. Illinois elementary school teacher Spencer Lent said he wanted Libs of TikTok to die. Literally just wanted that to happen. Moses Brown, teacher Jennifer Stewart in Rhode Island, praised the courage of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, who died after attacking ICE and wants everybody to be inspired by them. You might remember Lucy Martinez. She was in that video that went viral. A teacher at Nathan Hale Elementary School in Chicago was filmed at a No Kings protest, making a gesture of firing a gun at her own neck, seemingly referencing Charlie Kirk's murder. A professor at Coastal Carolina Community College in North Carolina was reportedly caught during class calling Trump a fascist dictator and Charlie Kirk a racist piece of you-know-what, claiming it's the end of democracy because educators got fired for celebrating Kirk's assassination. All right, for all these people that are mad about teachers and free speech and all that, number one, free speech is protecting you from the government, not protecting you from your employer. If your employer says you're not allowed to post on social media between 9 and 5 every day, guess what? That is not a First Amendment violation. That is if you want to work for this company, we have rules at this company saying it's First Amendment, it's freedom of speech. Your employer, a school district, probably doesn't want parents seeing you're calling for the death of anybody as a teacher. Melissa Coles, a staff member at Oak State, threatened a student for supporting Charlie Kirk and was quietly reinstated to her position after being temporarily removed, threatening students. Isn't that nice? Teacher at Scottsdale Unified School District in Arizona, who allegedly celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder and harassed a third grader, was reportedly trashing a student's mother via email for being an extremist because she opposed wokeness in schools. Do you not understand the massive problem we're having here? This list goes on and on and on and on. I could probably read this for the rest of the show. We have a real problem in education. And instead, we protect teachers like this, teachers who encourage violence. It's one thing to say, I'm a Democrat and I believe in big government. Okay, fine. I didn't know the politics of any of my teachers growing up, not a single one of them. I didn't know. Maybe it's I didn't care either, but nobody was pushing this kind of stuff on me. Now it's almost immediately the first question. Oh, I got a teacher and they're a liberal. Oh, I got a teacher, they're a conservative. Whatever the case may be. What happened to just teaching the facts? Now you've got teachers pushing violence. I wouldn't want anybody preaching violence against anybody if they were my kid's teacher. And yet this is normal. This is who the teachers unions are defending. Completely crazy. Up next, my friends, the chairman of the RNC is going to be swinging by to give us the details on what happened in D.C. on Saturday night and the response to it from the Democrat Party and Republicans and the media. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is the Mondayest of all Mondays I've ever seen, according to my next guest, who is the co-chair of the GOP nationally. And I'm looking around at all the stuff that happened this weekend, and I'm sure she has a unique perspective for us. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, Casey Crosby, co-chair of the RNC. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Such a pleasure. Were you in the room on Saturday night?
No, I was not. I was at another event, but I had seen the president Friday night at an event, and so, of course, my phone was going crazy because a lot of my friends and family knew that I would be with the president at some point during the weekend. They just didn't know when, and so a little scary when you start getting messages and you're in the middle of something and you don't quite know what's going on, and get on social media and see all the chaos. It's a little frightening.
Yeah, I came back online after being off the grid for 25 hours because of the Sabbath. And what was crazy was every news reporter was telling their individual story. Hey, I was hiding under the table with Tulsi Gabbard. And I'm like, guys, is he alive or dead? I had no idea. It took about 10 minutes till I actually found out what the story was. And yet, I keep coming back to the fact that, look, us Republicans, we didn't like Joe Biden, but I can't recall anybody ever asking for his death or encouraging people to commit violence, and yet that's what we see from the left all the time.
Yeah, I mean, the liberals and the Democrats, their rhetoric is just leading to this violence. I mean, you would think after Butler, after the first assassination attempt, they would kind of quiet down a little bit. Then after the golf course, you'd think they'd quiet down again. That's 2 times, and now Saturday night, and they're still at it today. It's amazing. Some of the Democrats, are claiming, we have to wait and see what happened. I think Obama came out with a statement, and it was pretty clear what had happened. Once again, it's the rhetoric that caused this monster. He intended to kill President Trump, his administration, and Republicans, and that's pretty out there. And yet they continue this rhetoric time and time again, and it's just leading to political violence against Republicans and conservatives, and it's unacceptable.
Yeah, I completely agree. It seems like this is just a one-way street. I mean, the Babylon Bee put it best that Trump is spending today negotiating a ceasefire with Democrats because the violence we see coming from the left is just completely out of control. How do you think this is playing with the American people? I mean, us political insiders can see it, but the average American, I mean, they'll say, hey, Trump says certain things, so the Democrats say certain things, or do you think they finally said enough is enough?
Yeah, I certainly hope people say enough is enough. I mean, and certainly you would think this assassination attempt occurring at an event where many members of the liberal media were attending and seeing firsthand how terrifying that can be for people who are in a different political party who might think differently than them. I mean, hopefully they would consider calming down their rhetoric a little bit. So you certainly hope that people are waking up to this. But, unfortunately, the world that we live in now, they've had time and time again to kind of calm things down, and they seem so unwilling to do it. And meanwhile, you look at, they're in a room that's also being protected by, by some of the bravest heroes. And meanwhile, the Democrats have kept Homeland Security shut down for over 70 days. It's insane.
Yeah, they won't even fund the people they're protecting. I don't know if you saw this. I'm sure you did at this point. But all these Democrats talk about the brave men and women of the Secret Service and the brave men and women of law enforcement. And I kept thinking to myself, what hypocrisy. You guys are the ones refusing to fund them, right?
Yeah, they have chosen to protect illegals and try to keep our borders open and they won't pass the SAVE Act, and the list goes on, and they put everybody first except for the brave men and women who are there just to protect us, and we see it all over the country, and it's really disgusting. And I think people are waking up to that because, frankly, people want to have the opportunity to have a good life. They want good opportunities for the children, and they want to feel safe. And they see that something like this can happen on a Saturday night, at a hotel, at a banquet, and it resonates, I think. So, yeah, but the Democrats, again, they're on the wrong side of so many issues, and it's amazing to me that they just keep flaming and fueling being on the wrong side of every single issue. And, and again, though, it gives us something going into the midterms that we're going to have a great story to tell about where they stand versus where we are.
We're talking with Casey Crosby, who's the co-chair for the RNC. And I remember it was right after Butler that a lot of people said, well, President Trump's pretty badass, to steal some of their words from the tech world, who are not really Republicans before that moment. Do you think we're seeing that here, or you think this is just a continuation of the same kind of narrative of they really hate this guy so much they're out to get him?
I mean, they're completely deranged, and it appears, look at Jimmy Kimmel. You would think that somebody like him would calm it down, and instead, prior, leading up to the dinner, he was doing a skit about Melania, showing her sitting in a fake audience and joking about her being an expectant widow. I mean, that just, fuels the fire with these crazy people. And, it's beyond pale, as President Trump said, and it's frankly just really disgusting where we are. And yeah, I don't see them calming down until they have consequences for it. I mean, ABC and Disney should come out and fire him for those types of comments and rhetoric. People need to be held accountable, but, our focus is making sure that we have President Trump and that we have a full 4 years of his agenda, and to keep, as President Trump says, fight, fight, fight for what's right for our country.
Yep. In the last few minutes we have with Casey Crosby, who's the co-chair for the Republican National Committee, I look at Barack Obama's statement. So it's hours. In fact, it's almost 12 or 13 hours after we already knew the motives behind this attempted assassin. And he says, we don't know the motives yet. I look at the New York Times, and the New York Times says, well, we don't know the motives yet, and yet they already knew them for hours at that point. You think they're just trying to downplay the whole thing, that this guy was a Democrat, had a Democrat candidate on his yard sign, was giving money to Kamala Harris, and had a manifesto, which is basically echoing every single Democrat talking point, especially the far left crazy ones?
Again, it is absolutely unequivocally disgusting that former President Obama and other Democrats like Chuck Schumer and others, a whole slew of them, cannot come out and condemn what happened. I mean, the shooter was a leftist monster. He intended to kill. There's reports, and they've been out there widespread, of a manifesto, and it made it very clear that he wanted to murder Trump administration officials and Republicans. I don't know how much more crystal clear his intentions could be, and for them to come out and say that the motive is unclear is just frankly disgusting.
Well, Casey, the next time you speak to the president, please tell him we are sending our love and our prayers to him, his entire family, his entire cabinet, all members of the administration out there in D.C., and know that, yes, there is a little red dot here in very, very blue Seattle that is praying for him and everybody who's part of his extended family.
Yes, we are thankful for that red dot, and listen, I hope I'm going to be out there soon. I think we've got some programs, and so I'll let you know when I'm in town, and we'll come meet you in person.
That would be fantastic. Casey Crosby, co-chair for the RNC, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
You too. Got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues on this very, very, very busy news day. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, sign up for our podcast. Subscribe to our podcast on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. If it's Amazon, if it's Apple, whatever it is, we are working out the bugs of our new podcast platform with the app. So if you want to hear the podcast, head on over to kvi.com or any of those podcast platforms. So that way you never miss a minute of the show. And yes, 5 years on air today. Big thank you to Kevin for putting up with me all this time. It's not an easy task, especially on days like today. So appreciate that, Kevin. Saw this over here over the weekend. This was trending. Some woman named Alyssa posted this on X. I want President Trump to change ICE to NICE, the National Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So the media has to say NICE agents all day, every day. What happens when they refuse to, like they did with the Gulf of America? President Trump saw this, posted it to Truth Social that said, great idea, do it. President DJT, which I think it's hysterical. What do you think? Should the president change the name of ICE to NICE just to troll the media? I think it's pretty funny. This text here over on the Warrior Injury Law text line from El Darthbo. Ari, the media on the left do not need to calm down their rhetoric. They do not need to calm down their rhetoric. Excuse me. They need to change their rhetoric. They need to tell and report the truth. The way they conduct themselves is disgusting. They make me throw up. That's the problem we have right now. Is anybody really being civil at all? Nobody's really being civil, but only one side's calling to kill the other side. Absolutely crazy. From Kelly in Seattle, Jimmy Kimmel should be questioned. He made a comment about Melania becoming a widow. Did he know something? He could be in trouble if he did. From the 206, so what do Republicans do knowing the Democrats want them dead? This is a road I don't want to go down, guys. I really don't. I mean, how many more is it going to take? How many more acts of violence is it going to take until people realize we actually have to tone all this down? People have the ability to say whatever they want. Doesn't mean you're free from consequences of what you say. Eben in Bonnie Lake says, Ari, I think all these leftist liberal lunatics truly believe that they are somehow fighting modern-day super-Nazis, and that this is how they justify calling for and celebrating the death for anyone who disagrees with them. It's so sad to see where news outlets and social media have brought us today. I'll say the president's not entirely free from blame from some of this. Remember what happened with Rob Reiner and all that? That was an opportunity where he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do that. Now, mind you, the president usually waits till after they're dead, but the Democrats are constantly calling for violence. As we discussed earlier, Pramila Jayapal. I mean, we just played the montage of them calling for the deaths of Republicans. It's crazy. It's crazy how often this happens. It really, really is. This one here, Ari, do you think it's possible for the federal government to only allow in-person same-day voting for elections for federal positions, including the president? States like ours could modify the federal election locations with booths at schools, post offices, federal buildings, federal employees in charge of the booths, checking ID, forward ballot results to a federal location. I don't know. It's just an expensive thought. Russ, you're not wrong, by the way. I think if we're having federal elections, then the federal election should all be to the exact same standard. However, consider this for a minute. What happens when somebody you don't like gets into office? What they do with those federal standards. And mind you, I think that voter ID, it's an 80-20 issue. We've seen that according to every polling. And should really question anybody at all who is saying we shouldn't have voter ID, because what is your motivation for that? What is your motivation to not have voter ID? Seriously. This one here, referencing our earlier story about Starbucks not leaving Seattle, and I'm using the giant air quotes if you're watching the live stream. This one here from the 206, Starbucks isn't leaving and Sears is still in business. I like that one. Yes, in the same building, right? Sears is still over there. This one here, this one's from the 425, who claims, I don't know if this is fully accurate, but Starbucks does not own that building and they have a lease through 2038. You know, the good news is King County property records are public. So we can look that up tonight and find out exactly who owns that building. The lease we won't have, but we can find out who owns that building and whether or not it's Starbucks or not. And if they have a lease through 2038, that's a really long lease. Who knows about this one? We'll find out. We'll do some digging. If you have any information on that, guys, be sure to email it over, text it over, so that way we can check it out. This one here from Bevan Oh, Ari, we love putting up with you 5 days a week. Please stay strong for us KVI listeners. That's very nice. Appreciate that. Ari, happy 5th anniversary. Thank you very much. Appreciate that as well. Yeah, I got to say, guys, I got to ask you, do you think we can come back from this precipice? I mean, I was so mad about this. I went on an entire tirade in the opening segment of the show about the rhetoric in this country and about how one side keeps calling for the other side to die and about the political violence we're seeing on the left. I think the difference is that almost unilaterally, you saw Republicans call out President Trump when he made the Rob Reiner comments. You didn't see anybody go, well, you saw a few of them. You didn't see most people go, yeah, that's right, go get him. No, most Republicans, including members of the government, said, dude, really? Do you need to do that? Who's calling out this insanity on the left? It's very, very few of them, or they couch their words in such a way, or they go back on it literally 5 minutes later. 5 minutes later, already Hakeem Jeffries gave a press conference today. Dime store Barack Obama, discount Barack Obama, gave a press conference today about how Caroline Leavitt was lying about all those quotes of Democrats calling for the president to be dead. No, she wasn't. We have montage after montage after montage after montage of them making these comments. He's just mad they got caught. Instead, what he should say is, I call out my members to do that. You should call out the president for his remarks. Or you should call out this congressman from their remarks. You never see him do anything like that. He hasn't called out Ilhan Omar for the fact that her filings went from $30 million in earnings to just under, $100,000 in earnings? Refused to answer questions on that whatsoever. If you don't call it out, it gets worse and worse and worse. Look what's happening with the radicals on the left, how they keep getting worse and worse and worse because they know nobody is going to call them out. So they just keep doing what they do. Up next, my friends, we have the charging documents for what exactly they're going after the alleged assassin for, plus more fallout from what happened Saturday night. Your calls, your texts, plus so much more. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Much older. 5 years is much older. Well, definitely a lot balder than he was when he started. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show. You want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to our wonderful audience for being with us, for continuing to grow, for spreading the word about the show. I want to thank Kevin for always being there and helping us out through all this. Thank everybody over at Lotus Communications for keeping us on air. And thank you to all of our advisors, our advertisers, and our sponsors as well, because we wouldn't be able to do this without any of you. Our listeners are what makes the show. You guys also give us the best tips, so appreciate that. And if you want to be part of the show today, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Ron in Tacoma. Ron, what's up, man?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that Kimmel basically is inciting violence, which is a crime under the law. And I wanted to point out to you also that I don't know. I guess the gentleman that ended up becoming our new assassin, he has all these high school grades.
Failed assassin. He didn't actually kill anybody. Failed assassin. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like that. Basically, I guess he missed the class where Nathan Bedford Forrest was the founder of the Ku Klux Klan. He was a Democrat.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I guess if he was in there hunting people, maybe he should have took a history lesson, figured out who the target was. Or maybe just not do that at all.
I'll say this, is that the problem with this kid is it seems like he was fine until he went to college, and then it's clear the brain rot got to him, which is tragic, which happens to a lot of people, unfortunately, not to this extreme, but happens to a lot of them. He was actually featured on the news for something he came up as a stopper for wheelchairs, because right now wheelchair brakes aren't great. They just stop the wheels. They don't actually stop the thing from moving. So this was a kid who had nothing but potential and got taken over by the woke mind virus. And unfortunately, we see it way, way too often. Ron, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. John in Lakewood says, Ari, with Charles and Camilla in D.C., where are the No Kings protesters? Very good. Very good, John. Do like that one. Exactly. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Ted in Gig Harbor. Ted, what's up?
Ari, 5 years, congratulations. Here's a story about the welcome that you got. Shortly after you started the show, you attended a fundraiser that I was at, and you were introduced as the heir apparent to Kirby Wilbur. Now, in the old days, when people saw Kirby in public, they'd go, Kirby, Kirby, Kirby. And the crowd picked it up, and they said, Ari, Ari, Ari. I mean, it was awesome. It was inspiring. We draw a lot of strength from your show. It's very encouraging, and it's very funny. That show last Friday was a scream from across the street at Starbucks.
Oh, the Thursday episode. Thank you. Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Do more stuff like that. It was a hoot.
I'll tell you what. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should set up outside the Washington State Legislature next year and just ridicule them. Maybe we'll just try and flag them. I don't know if we're allowed to do that. I got to double check and see if we're allowed to do that. They have rules about where you can and cannot broadcast from on campus. So I got to check out that one. But I think that one could be pretty fun, don't you?
Oh, yes. I would pay money for that.
There you go. Yeah, maybe City Hall. Katie, come outside. Katie.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, can you imagine that? Katie, let down your hair. Oh, wait a second. We have too much fun with that. Ted, appreciate you listening. Appreciate you being part of the show. Appreciate the kind words. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Earlier today, the suspect, the failed assassin who went after President Trump, was charged. Here's what he was charged with.
I want to make this clear. This man was a floor above the ballroom with hundreds of federal agents between him and the President of the United States. The Department of Justice approaches incidents like this with urgency and clarity of purpose. Violence has no place in civic life. It cannot and will not be used to disrupt democratic institutions or intimidate those who serve them, and it certainly cannot continue to be used against the President of the United States. We are investigating this matter fully. We will apply the law fairly, and we will ensure that accountability is swift and certain. But we also should recognize what did not happen. Law enforcement did not fail. They did exactly what they are trained to do. This was not an accident. It was the result, as we know now, of preparation. But the men and women who protected us that night were trained, professional, and had an enduring commitment to the rule of law. Today, the Department of Justice filed 3 federal charges in United States District Court against Cole Thomas Allen. The first count is attempted assassination of the President of the United States. This count is punishable by up to life in prison. The second count is interstate transportation of a firearm to commit a felony. This is punishable by up to 10 years in prison. And the third count is discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence, which is punishable by a mandatory minimum term of imprisonment of 10 years, a maximum of life, and the 10 years is consecutive to any other sentence imposed.
Now, there's a lot to unpack in everything he said, and the reason we played that 2-minute clip for you is let's work backwards. There are 3 charges so far. Jeanine Pirro was also at the press conference today, and she said there might be a whole lot more coming his way, and likely there will be. How many other things did he do? Are we talking about other firearm charges? Are we talking about other things? Did he put other people's lives in danger? What about the agent that he shot? Because that one hasn't been charged yet. There's a lot of other charges that will likely come this way from this because you want an open shut case. That's what you want. But the question is how many of them are open shut? But that whole spiel beforehand about security, a lot of people are questioning the security. So Jimmy Fallon, not Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Fallon, he's over on Fox News. They actually just posted an interview with him where he was talking about how lax the security was before the shooting happened. In fact, you had Bill Malugin and a few other people from Fox News talking about how lax the security was. Unfortunately, sometimes it's something like this that makes people pay a closer attention to the security. So, for example, you could get into the hotel. It's a massive hotel, but you could get into the hotel with basically anything you want. What if somebody had driven a car into the parking garage and blown up the whole thing? What if somebody had parked a car in there 3 or 4 days before the Secret Service showed up and decided to blow the whole thing up? Look, I know that when the president was at the RNC, there was a time we had to be out of the building because the Secret Service needed to sweep the whole building, but that was the day before. When we were at Turning Point USA and J.D. Vance was coming, there's a time we have to be out of the building, but that's the day before because they have to sweep the whole building. They don't do it 2 days before. They don't do it 3 days before. And they weren't screening everybody who was coming in and out of that hotel. Now, what if now from now on, the Secret Service says, we have to book the whole hotel. That's more expensive for the American taxpayer. What if they have to screen every person? That's more expensive for the American taxpayer. You're making more and more reasons why you need the ballroom for President Trump every single day, or excuse me, for any president whatsoever, any president going forward, why you need the one at the White House. Because 1, it's more secure. 2, it's cheaper. 3, you don't have to rent out venues anymore. There's the list of reasons go on about why you actually need this thing. And to me, it made sense from the beginning. It really did. Do I think you may have wanted to get permission from a few more people? Maybe. But at this point, it's a frivolous lawsuit trying to stop this thing. And anybody who's still backing this, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. We know why we need this thing. So last night, President Trump was doing an interview with 60 Minutes. He got a lot of interesting questions during the interview with 60 Minutes. But also, during his press conference on Saturday night, everybody was still in their Saturday night finest. They're all in tuxes. They all got the bow ties on while they're doing this press conference. President Trump had a very entertaining line.
Nobody told me this was such a dangerous profession. If Marco would have told me, maybe I wouldn't have run. Maybe I would have said, I'll take a pass. No, it's a dangerous profession, but I don't view it that way. Look, I'm here to do a job. As part of the job, it is a dangerous. I can't imagine that there's any profession that's more dangerous. But I love the country, and I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the job we've done. You see what's happened. We have a great country.
So 60 Minutes asked him why he thinks there's been 3 attempts on his life. Here's what he said.
Thank you, President Trump.
Oh, sorry. This was, excuse me, take that back. This was Peter Doocy at the same press conference on Saturday night.
There's a report in the New York Post that this assailant assembled his weapon somewhere on site at the hotel. What do you think about that? And I ask respectfully, why do you think this keeps happening to you?
Well, you know, I've studied assassinations, and I must tell you, the most impactful people, the people that do the most, you take a look at the people, Abraham Lincoln, I mean, you go through the people that have gone through this where they got them. But the people that do the most, the people that make the biggest impact, they're the ones that they go after. They don't go after the ones that don't do much because they like it that way. And when you look at the people that have either, whether it was an attempt or a successful attempt, they're very impactful people. Just take a look at the names there, the big names. And I hate to say I'm honored by that, but I've done a lot. We've done a lot. We've taken this country, and we were a laughing stock for years, and now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We've changed this country, and there are a lot of people that are not happy about that. So I think that's the answer, Peter.
Now, 60 Minutes, when they did the interview last night, they asked a similar question.
We are consequential. This is a consequential presidency. I have a great cabinet, and they do things that are very good. But some people, you know, if they're good for us, they're not good for other people. Like, as an example, Iran, when they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. They will not have. They're not going to blow up the world. They're crazy. They're not going to blow up the world. And therefore, they're not happy. And when they're not happy, people do things that are violent. Now, I'm not tracing anything back to them, but certainly if they had a shot, they'd probably take it. So when you're a consequential president, or if you have a consequential administration, things happen that wouldn't happen if you're Sleepy Joe Biden. Everyone was happy with Biden. The world was happy. You know why they were happy? Because they were taking advantage of us, because they treated the United States like we were stupid people, and they made a lot of money, but they don't do that anymore.
Now, on this show, I don't like glorifying the shooters. I think I've mentioned his name one time the entire episode because I had to. I read one line of the manifesto because I don't want to give him the time on my show that he clearly wanted, or the attention that this guy clearly wanted. I know other people are doing it. But 60 Minutes last night basically read President Trump the manifesto, gave that airtime to this lunatic. And here's how President Trump responded.
So-called manifesto is a stunning thing to read, Mr. President. He appears to reference a motive in it. He writes this, quote, administration officials, they are targets. And he also wrote this, I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people, horrible people. Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
Do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me.
Now, mind you, the stuff that he's being associated with is literally stuff the Democrats say all the time. This is the kind of stuff the Democrats are. It's basically like reading out what the Democrats say all the time. This is the kind of stuff that they say.
When you read the manifesto of this shooter, ask yourselves, how different is the rhetoric from this almost assassin than what you read on social media and hear in various forums every single day? The answer, if you're being honest with yourself, is that there is no difference at all. Much of the manifesto of the would-be assassin is indistinguishable from the words that we hear daily from so many. For example, as the First Lady of the United States pointed out this morning, just 2 days prior to the shooting, ABC's late-night host Jimmy Kimmel disgustingly called First Lady Melania Trump an expectant widow. Who in their right minds says a wife would be glowing over the potential murder of her beloved husband? And having experienced what I did with the First Lady on Saturday night, I can tell you that she was anything but that.
She was sitting right next to her. She was sitting up there on the dais. Don't forget, Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary of the White House, is like 11 months pregnant. She's ready to have that baby any minute. She came back for this press conference today. She went on maternity leave on Friday. On Friday. Now, the president had an interesting line when he was talking to 60 Minutes. He was calling out the Democrats for funding the Southern Poverty Law Center. He was calling them out for it because they were basically pushing hate and claiming they were fighting it.
I see these no kings, which are funded just like the Southern Law was funded. You saw all that. Southern Law is financing the KKK and lots of other radical, terrible groups. And then they go out and they say, oh, we've got to stop the KKK, and yet they give them hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars. It's a total scam run by the Democrats. It shows you that, like Charlottesville was all funded by the Southern Law. That was a Southern Law deal, too. And it was done to make me look bad, and it turned out to be a total fake. It basically was a rigged election. This was a part of the rigging of the election, and that's what you really should be doing. I mean, I hope one of your 60-minute episodes, which really hasn't changed very much from the last few years, I'm surprised, but one of those episodes should be on Southern Law and the fact that they spent millions and millions of dollars on absolute far right and just bad groups.
Now, I would argue is that there was no bigger donation to the opponents of President Trump than Democrats' friends in the media. The media, which constantly bashes on Republicans, which constantly bashes on President Trump, I would say that was the biggest donation of all. If you want to say a rigged election, I think actually the fact that they don't have to do public disclosures for the finances, for the amount of airtime they gave to that is something we should be talking about. How they can just bash and bash and bash and bash. But the American people are voting with their feet, voting with their wallets, and they're not watching that kind of stuff anymore because it's gotten so absolutely crazy. In fact, one of the things I did like was actually when President Trump was talking to this woman from 60 Minutes, because he was talking about the no kings, right? He's talking about the no kings. And when he says to her, he goes, no kings, if I was a king, I wouldn't have to be talking to you. Literally the king and queen of England are, well, I say king and queen consort. What's her title? I don't track these things. Tracking royalty is so 1776. They're literally coming to Washington, D.C. I think they landed a few hours ago. I think they are in Washington, D.C. right now. Where are all the no kings people?
He had attended a No Kings protest in California.
No Kings. Yeah.
What did security tell you about what may have been his motives?
The reason you have people like that is you have people doing no kings. I'm not a king. What I am, if I was a king, I wouldn't be dealing with you.
I do like the unfiltered, uncensored President Trump. I really, really do. But I'll tell you, this is very, very scary. Third time. Babylon Bee had a headline. It said, President Trump discusses ceasefire with Democrats. Because it's the constant rhetoric of this. It's constant. It never stops. It never ends. Demonization. Do Democrats have to worry about Antifa showing up at their events only if they're pro-Israel? That's it. The other ones? No, they're their foot soldiers. If you agree with everything they say, then they won't bother you, right? They show up to Republican events. I have to get security. Other conservative commentators have to get security. Nobody went after Joe Biden that we know of. I'm sure there were threats. But you see any attempted assassination? No, and the president's 100% right. Why? Because he was doing what enemies of this country wanted him to do, funding Iran. In fact, speaking of Iran, up next, my friends, everybody forgot about Iran, given everything that happened this weekend. But there are some major developments of what's going on. Marco Rubio weighs in a tux. We'll give you all those details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I'll give you a little secret. I don't even like having the day off most of the time. I like being here with my audience, especially when so much news is happening. That's right. We are celebrating 5 years of the Ari Hoffman Show today. Appreciate all of you being along for the ride and making it possible. If you guys weren't listening, it would just be me yelling and Kevin rolling his eyes at me every day, and that's not a good place to be at all. So we appreciate this from all of us to all of you. Thank you so much for your support over the last 5 years. Really want to thank our sponsors, too. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do this show at all. So now there's a lot of questions because don't forget, the Ayatollah's regime hired assassins to try and kill President Trump. Given the staggering security gaps that we now know about, given the Secret Service protocols, it should have been easier, don't you think? This is horrifying how easy it could have been. Well, now people are very, very concerned. So where are we with the war right now? Some people are saying, oh, just get out, be done with it. In fact, I keep seeing Joe Kent keep posting these insane diatribes about how now's a good time to get out. Now's a good time to get out. So now's a good time to get out when Iran says they want to continue nuclear enrichment, and when Iran says they're going to keep closing the Hormuz Strait, and when Iran says they're going to keep funding terror. You think this is a good time to get out? Sure, just reopen everything, get rid of the embargo, let them send out oil so they can make money again. So, yeah, it may take them some time to recuperate, but they're going to be back to their old ways in no time. This is why I like Marco Rubio and why I think Joe Kent doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Here's Marco Rubio.
Saturday, President Trump canceled the planned talks in Islamabad, Pakistan, encouraging the delegation not to go. And on Saturday, the president canceled the talks in Islamabad, Pakistan, keeping Special Envoys Kushner and Witkoff here in the United States. He said just 10 minutes later, the Iranians made a new offer on paper, and it was better.
If what they mean by opening the straits is, yes, the straits are opened as long as you coordinate with Iran, get our permission, or we'll blow you up, and you pay us, that's not opening the straits. Those are international waterways. They cannot normalize, nor can we tolerate them trying to normalize a system in which the Iranians decide who gets to use an international waterway and how much you have to pay them to use it.
You know what would be a good way to go right now? How about we get the Europeans to send a few ships down, because this is where their oil flows through. How about we get them to take control of it? Or better yet, let's do it like we did with the Panama Canal before we stupidly gave it back to Panama. Let us be in charge of it. Pay us back for the war like tolls, and then you can have your strait all to yourselves, assuming you can actually protect the thing. This is insane that they're actually suggesting, well, you blew them up enough, let's get out of here. They are still literally attacking ships. They are still stopping international trade. It is an international waterway. If somebody tried to toll the Atlantic Ocean, wait, they actually kind of did try to stop that one point. You remember the Nazi U-boats trying to stop supplies coming from America, trying to stop supplies going to the UK? It's no different. It's just a modern day version of this. Now, mind you, before everything that happened this weekend, last week there was a meeting in the Oval Office. And some people are rightly concerned about Iran coming to the World Cup. I'm concerned because our idiot mayor, Katie Wilson, wants to shut off all the security cameras. Basically putting out a big sign to terrorists saying, come to Seattle because Iran's playing Egypt here. So put out a big welcome mat. Yep, come here. Terrorists, you're all welcome here. Here's what Marco Rubio said when asked about this in the Oval Office.
Nothing from the U.S. has told them they can't come. I mean, the problem with Iran, it would be not their athletes. It would be some of the other people that would want to bring with them, some of whom have ties to the IRGC. We may not be able to let them in, but not the athletes themselves. But I don't know where that's coming from, other than speculation that Iran may decide not to come, and then Italy would fill their spot. But if they decide not to come on their own, it's because they decided not to come. What they can't bring is a bunch of IRGC terrorists into our country and pretend that they're, journalists and athletic trainers.
Now, what I find funny, we discussed this a little bit last week. On the monorail in Seattle, you have those columns that go down Fifth Avenue that are holding up the monorail. Not the light rail, the monorail. It was built as a touristy type attraction for what could be in Seattle for mass transit in the 1960s for the World's Fair, and it was basically a tourist attraction until they built the light rail just a few years ago, attached it to the monorail. Not really attached it, but they link up at a station near there. And now it serves a function until like 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock. Then you can't ride the monorail anymore. So it's not really good for those of us who are trying to get back to the studio in the middle of the night, because Mike and I ended up hoofing it one time. But they painted the columns of the monorail with the flags of the countries that are going to be competing here in Seattle. So a few days ago, I called attention to the fact that they have the IRGC's flag on one of these columns because they're coming to play. By the way, you probably should have thought about that before you said, let's do flags. Maybe players instead, or I don't know, World Cup trophies or something. I don't know. But instead, you do the flags. So you've got the IRGC flag there in the middle of Seattle. People keep vandalizing it. Now, I've filed a few requests for comment to find out who keeps paying to repair it, who paid for this in the first place. Was it Seattle getting money from the World Cup? Was it Seattle just doing what Seattle does? Because I noticed they keep repainting this thing, but they don't clean up the graffiti nearby. Pete Hegseth was talking about how effective the U.S. military has been against the IRGC.
The IRGC specifically has been reduced to a gang of pirates with a flag. They cloak their aggression in slogans, but the world now sees them for what they are, criminals on the high seas. They don't control anything. They're acting like pirates, acting like terrorists. They're the ones who lay indiscriminate mines, who shoot at random ships, who killed 45,000 of their own people, innocent protesters in the course of weeks. Their own people. They are the bad actors. The vessels that the Iranians seized in recent days, a couple of them, they're not American ships. They're not Israeli ships. They're just random ships that where they drove their little speedboats up to and shot at those ships with AK-47s. Anyone with a speedboat, a gun, and the wrong intentions can do that. They know that we, the United States of America, control the flow of global shipping. And we know that they know. Their real Navy is at the bottom of the Arabian Gulf.
Exactly. So why don't we bring out the Coast Guard? Why don't we bring out the Coast Guard? They're good at this. Why don't we do what we do to combat the drug smugglers? We know what we're doing with this. Now, a lot of Americans are worried about getting sucked into another situation in the Middle East where we don't get out for years and years. And Vice President J.D. Vance actually addressed this the other day.
I certainly empathize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. I understand the concern, but the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents, and now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives. So this is not going to be some long, drawn-out thing. We've got in, we've done the job of setting their nuclear program back. We're going to now work to permanently dismantle that nuclear program over the coming years, and that is what the president has set out to do. Simple principle. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. That has animated American policy over the past 130 days. It's going to continue to be a driving force of our policy in the Middle East for the next 3.5 years.
And he's right. That's the direction it looks like. Now, I know anytime I ask this question on the phone line or the text line, and I ask you, KVI Nation, do you think we should keep going? Do you think we should stop here? Do you think we should negotiate? Almost always, unanimously, it's stay in and finish the fight. In fact, I'll give you the phone number in the text line right now if you want to weigh in. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. A lot of you are actually mad that there's this whole ceasefire, no ceasefire. But I saw a video from Ben Gurion Airport the other day. Ben Gurion Airport is the commercial airport in Israel. It's where all the passenger planes go. But right before this all started, right before the bombing began on what, Friday night, Saturday morning, the first time? And I remember seeing a video on Friday, and I told the audience about this at the time. I said, I've never seen Ben Gurion Airport look like a military base before, but all the U.S. tankers and other planes were over there. So you saw it on video. Guess what I saw on just on Friday, I think it was. There was another video that went out showing how they're staging all that stuff at Ben Gurion Airport again, which means all this ceasefire talk, all these negotiations could also be just moving assets into place until we're actually ready to go again. You need to replenish your assets. You need to bring in more supplies. You need to make that happen. And I wonder if this is what Trump did the first time. Guys, we're at your doorstep. You could do what we want, or we could blow you off the face of the earth. But don't say we didn't give you every single chance to try and negotiate your way out of this. That's what I think might be going on. Up next, my friends, some craziness happening at the University of Washington. I thought we were done with allowing the activists on campus. Turns out we're really, really not by a long shot. We'll tell you what happened most recently when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Yes, we are celebrating our 5th anniversary this year. Happy to have you all along for the ride. I'm getting a lot of emails from people, by the way, about Starbucks, where one person did the research, sent me an email, I have to verify all this, and says that the building is not owned by Starbucks. It's owned by some kind of other group. Because don't forget, it was the original Sears building. It's a historic building. So it says it's owned by a different investor group. So now I'm kind of curious what the terms of the lease are, if that's accurate. So we'll find out what the story is with that. I will do some digging. I will do some looking. I will find out. We're talking about the security failures at the event on Saturday night. Somebody suggested that we should be doing events at the Kennedy Center until the White House ballroom is ready. Isn't the Kennedy Center out of commission too? Aren't they renovating that right now also? I don't think the Kennedy Center is available. I think we had a last big hurrah, and now they're renovating that sucker, and I think it's going to be out of commission for a long time. But either way, the White House is a fortress. The Kennedy Center is not. These hotels are not, even if they're nearby. So don't do that. John in Lakewood says, Ari, I agree. Trump's using this interlude to replace ordnance and do necessary maintenance before renewing the degradation of Iran's infrastructure. I believe a plan is already in place to arm friendlies. This one from Jeanette. Ari, I think Trump is a good strategist, but yes, let's finish this fight. When an adversary is dedicated to killing you, kill them first. This one from the 206, end the theocratic regime in Iran. Another one from a different 206, stay in, finish the job, arm Persian patriots to overthrow their own nation from the radicals. So, yeah, like I said, I knew you guys would be on the exact same page because this is what happened last time. Now, meanwhile, we have our own problems locally with domestic terrorists. Let's not forget, back in May, we're almost coming up on the 1-year anniversary. 33 Antifa and pro-Hamas activists decided to cause over $1 million worth of damage to the engineering building at the University of Washington after they occupied it. They were well organized. They knew what they were doing. And now they're just being charged with criminal trespass. But what's worse is 2 of them are working for the University of Washington. I kid you not. They were suspended from campus. They were allowed back on campus. And now 2 of them are apparently working for the University of Washington's Harry Bridges Center for Labor Studies. It's employing them. 2 of them. Now, we believe that Super UW, which is the group that caused all this damage, is using the Harry Bridge Center to run events on campus because the group was suspended and it doesn't get to rent rooms anymore. But the Henry Bridge Center for Labor Studies, oh, you mean Communist Studies. They're like acting as a beard for them. On April 10th, UW's Harry Bridges Center for Labor Studies hosted a teach-in on U.S. imperial wars, which, according to The Daily, that's the campus newspaper, educate participants on the methods and impact of U.S. colonialism. Oh, give me a break. The event held on campus in the Samuel E. Kelly Ethnic Cultural Center featured Professor Arya Fanny, who was recently removed from his directorship of the Middle East Center by the Jackson School of International Studies after using the school's listserv to send out his manifestos opposing the war in Iran. You don't get to use the listserv for that, no matter what you're doing. Do I get to just take the KVI email and send out whatever I want when I want? I don't even have access to all the KVI emails. Otherwise, you'd be getting a lot more emails from me. He wrote in his diatribes that it was always BS that the Islamic Republic was pursuing nuclear weapons, portrayed Israel as the aggressor, despite Iran funding terror proxies to attack Israel and U.S. citizens, including most notably on October 7, 2023. Previously called Israel a country that is behaving increasingly like a Nazi state. During his remarks, Fanny said Iranians were going to die of cancer that is Zionism. Charming fella. According to The Daily, the event was also participated in by the Students United for Palestinian Equity and Return, UW, otherwise known as Super UW. Students for a Democratic Society, a.k.a. communists, and Nidal Seattle, which is a new terror-friendly group around the area. They're the ones who were involved in the event last Sunday, blocking Jews from going to a fundraiser. On April 16th, Super UW claimed that the Harry Bridges Center was a co-sponsor of an event during which they would write letters to terrorists imprisoned in Israel in a room on campus. Because the group is suspended, it is not supposed to be able to use the rooms on campus. In the same post, the group promoted their event this week, during which they raised money to materially support the Lebanese Resistance, also known as Hezbollah, a U.S.-designated terror organization. The event was officially promoted by UW entities, including the Department of Political Science. So I think what the problem is here is the administration might not know these other events are going on. It's a big campus, over 60,000 people involved in it, and may not know what each of these branches are doing, which now Super UW is taking advantage of. The question is the University of Washington going to crack down on all this? Because let's not forget, right now they have 2 Department of Justice investigations looking into them. Wouldn't surprise me if Super UW, even after the UW administration under the previous president caved to their demands on multiple occasions, is just trying to destroy the school. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Let's be real. Super UW, this group here, they want the fight. They want the chaos. They want the anarchy, which ties back into how the left wants all this pandemonium. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news headlines put a smile on your face. Heading into your evening commute, you're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI and start the next 5 years of the Ari Hoffman Show, because I got to say, celebrating a 5-year anniversary, big deal. I mean, if you asked me 5 years ago, would I even be in this industry? That was a real pivot for me. I was a business owner. COVID destroyed my companies, and I became Jay Inslee's absolute worst nightmare. But really, if it wasn't for the people at Sinclair Broadcasting back then, the people at Lotus Communications now, everybody for taking a chance on a guy who had no radio experience whatsoever, except for occasionally being guests for other political discussions before, and said, hey, let's roll the dice on this guy and give him his own show, I wouldn't be able to do this. So I really just want to thank everybody here at KVI, everybody here at Lotus Communications, originally Sinclair, before they sold us, for taking a chance on me. all the people we've worked with, Kevin, Mike, Zach, everybody around here. It's really been awesome. I get to do my dream job every single day. And I get to do it because of all of you, because of our show sponsors, because of our listeners. I get to do my dream job every single day. So thank you all so much for that. I really, really do appreciate it. Saw this story here. This actually comes to us from the War Department. Today, the Navy commissioned the submarine USS Idaho in a traditional ceremony at Naval Submarine Base in New London and Groton, Connecticut. The ceremony marked the culmination of a multi-year construction process and officially brought the USS Idaho into the fleet. It is the fifth Navy vessel named for the gem state. The most recent predecessor, USS Idaho, was a battleship commissioned in 1919 that earned the 7 battle stars for its service during World War II, including action at Iwo Jima and Okinawa, Japan. Senator James Risch of Idaho delivered the principal address for the ceremony's as the ceremony's keynote speaker. Acting Navy Secretary also delivered remarks emphasizing the strategic importance of the new submarine. Said, "We are a maritime nation bordering on both the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. Our commerce depends on safe and secure sea lanes of communication. President Donald J. Trump's commission to our military is simple. To achieve peace through strength, the USS Idaho joins the fleet ready to answer the call to action in any ocean at any time." Navy Commander Chad Goulreau, commanding officer of the Idaho, addressed the attendees, speaking on behalf of the crew and the submarine's rich heritage. Quote, "The Idaho connection is more than a name, it's a legacy built before us that is being reborn today. I am incredibly proud to be the commissioning captain of a vessel so steeped in tradition, and most importantly, honored to be the captain of a crew so mighty that they have outshone all those before them." The ship's sponsor, Teresa Stackley, gave the traditional order to man our ship and bring her to life, at which point the crew ceremonially ran aboard to man the submarine. "This moment is for you, Commander, and your crew," she said. "Please note that when you sail, my heart sails with you." The Idaho is the 26th Virginia-class submarine, the 8th of the advanced Block 4 configuration. It was christened on March 16, 2024, at the shipyard in Groton. As the newest submarine to join the fleet, the Idaho brings cutting-edge warfighting capability to the nation's undersea forces. Virginia-class submarines feature enhanced stealth, sophisticated surveillance capabilities, and special warfare enhancements to meet the Navy's multi-mission requirement. Now, I did actually get curious when I was reading this. Has there ever been a USS Washington? Now, thank you to Wikipedia for finding this to me, but I had to do some research into the USS Washington because apparently there hasn't been one in a long time. Now, maybe I'm mistaken about this, but this is what came up thanks to Mr. Google. USS Washington, hull number BB56, was the second and final member of the North Carolina class of fast battleships, the first vessel of the type built for the United States Navy. Built under the Washington Treaty System, North Carolina's design was limited in displacement and armament, though the United States used a clause in the Second London Naval Treaty to increase the main battery from the original armament of 9 14-inch guns to 9 16-inch guns. The ship was laid down in 1938, completed in May of 1941, while the United States was still neutral during World War II. Her initial career was spent training along the east coast of the United States until Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, bringing the U.S. into war. Washington was initially deployed to Britain to reinforce the home fleet, which was tasked with protecting convoys carrying supplies to the Soviet Union. Wow, how things have changed. She saw no action during this period as the German fleet remained in port, and Washington was recalled to the U.S. in July of 1942 to be refitted and transferred to the Pacific. Immediately sent to the South Pacific to reinforce Allied units fighting in the Guadalcanal campaign, the ship became the flagship of Rear Admiral Willis Lee. She saw action in the Battle of Guadalcanal on the night of November 14th through 15th in the company of the battleship USS South Dakota and 4 destroyers. After South Dakota inadvertently drew heavy Japanese fire by sailing too closely to the Admiral's squadron, Washington took advantage of the Japanese preoccupation with the South Dakota to inflict fatal damage on the Japanese battleship Kirishima and the destroyer Ayanami, while avoiding damage herself. Washington's attack disrupted the planned bombardment of U.S. Marine positions on Guadalcanal and forced the remaining Japanese ships to withdraw. From 1943 onward, she was primarily occupied with screening the fast carrier task force, though she occasionally shelled Japanese positions in support of various amphibious assaults. During this period, Washington participated in the Gilbert and Marshall Island campaign in late 1943 and early 1944, the Marina and Palau Islands campaign in mid-1944, and the Philippines campaign in late 1944 and early 1945. Operations to capture Iwo Jima and Okinawa followed in 1945, and during the later stages of the Battle of Okinawa, Washington was detached to undergo an overhaul, though by the time it was completed, Japan had surrendered, ending the war. Washington then moved to the east coast of the U.S., where she was refitted to serve as a troop transport as part of Operation Magic Carpet, carrying a group of over 1,600 soldiers home from Britain. She was thereafter decommissioned in 1947, assigned to the Atlantic Reserve Fleet, where she remained until 1960, when she was stricken from the Naval Register and sold for scrap the next year. Wow, if that isn't just an analogy for Washington these days, I don't know what is. So it's kind of sad there is no ship named Washington currently right now that I could find. If somebody wants to correct me on that or knows of one, please email me, ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. From Just Bob, he says over on the Warrior studio line, he says, congratulations on your 5th, Ari. The last couple of years have been tough on reasonable conservative radio on the Pacific Northwest, but this is what counts, particularly on the AM dial. Keep up the good fight, Just Bob. And it is really nice that all of you are sending in your best wishes. Pam from Lake Stevens says, happy anniversary. Do appreciate that as well, Pam. I do love all the well wishes coming in. Thank you all very, very much. And I will say again, we could not do this without all of you. Could not do this without Kevin. Could not do this without everybody here at Lotus Communications. So we do appreciate that very, very much. And of course, a big shout out to our sponsors. I'm lucky that I don't only have my dream show, I got my dream sponsors as well, who are kind enough to give me things like cars to drive around to showcase for everybody. So that's really a lot of fun. So now I'm going to take this opportunity to ask the audience, are there things you want to see the show do? Are there segments you wish we still did? Are there segments we don't do anymore that you'd like to see us bring back? I get asked about Fake News Friday all the time. I know, guys, I know. But are there things you'd like to see us change going into our next cycle? Please drop me an email, ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com with your thoughts. We are always more than happy to do that kind of stuff. Also, I want to remind everybody that you can follow us on social media, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, The Hofffather over on X. And of course, you can stream the show on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, and all the other platforms that we have out there. Got our cameras back up and running this week. Like, for example, we had a caller earlier who said, Ari, we'd like to see you do more things like what you did at Starbucks last week, where you went out there and parked right outside their facility. I think doing more things like that out in the field could be a lot of fun. That's going to do it for us today, but fear not, my friends. We'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories and more exciting guests. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.